Forum.
Yes, I don't know.
I'd like to call the February meeting of the Economic Development Authority to order and welcome everyone. Thank you for your presence here today. Our first item is roll call. Mr. Moore.
All right, good morning, everyone. Mr. Hines.
Present.
Mr. Kovacic. Ms. Link.
Present.
Mr. Mitchell.
Present.
Ms. Revel.
Present.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Smith.
Present.
Okay, I trust everyone got the minutes of the January meeting. Do I hear any additions or corrections?
I'll move adoption of the minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Can I do a roll call? Do a roll call. Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Ms. Link.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
That brings us to the financials. You know, I checked my email at 6:30 this morning, and at that point, I didn't have them. I see they're here on the table. But I would prefer that we defer them I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
Madam Chair, I was actually going to make that motion if we could defer the vote on the financials until to the March meeting would be my preference as well.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so we'll do Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Ms. Link.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries, and they're deferred until March.
Old business, the nominating committee, Don Scott and Anthony Hines. Mr. Scott's not here yet, so Mr. Hines, would you present the slate of officers, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Scott and I met on a number of occasions by way of phone call, reached out to a number of commissioners that we thought would be good fits for their new officers, our new vice chair and treasurer. After some deliberation, it's funny that Councilwoman Ms. Simmons had just joked that if you're not here, you get voted as a slate. The nominating committee is going to request that you consider Mr. Don Scott for vice chair and for treasurer, Mr. Kovacic. With that, I do make that motion.
I second.
I think you should probably, I think you can take the acceptance. You should ask if anyone has any additional nominations, but.
Any discussion or additional nominations from the floor?
Then you can vote on the
Can we
slate.
take both? Take them both.
Yeah, you can vote on the slate.
So we'll be voting on both slots simultaneously here.
Yes.
We have a motion on the floor in a second.
All right, Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Ms. Link.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Revel.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Congratulations to the two gentlemen that are not here.
That's what happens.
Now you're officers.
Congratulations.
All right.
The next item is the EDA retreat on March the 19th. Mr. Moore?
Yes, so as we have attempted to do annually, we will have the next edition of the EDA retreat on March the 19th. That is your regularly scheduled meeting date. However, instead of an 8 to 9 meeting, we are looking at essentially a 7:30 to 2 meeting at the Renaissance. 7:30 because there will be a light breakfast served. The meeting will start at 8. Your normal meeting will start at 8. There will be some business that we will have to discuss, and then we will attempt to have the retreat start at 9. Box lunches will be served when we anticipate being done by 2 o'clock. What will be different from last year is last year we did do a tour of an economic development tour of the city. We will not do that this year because we are going to schedule a more comprehensive tour for more than just this body later on in the spring. But we are looking at having a facilitator at the meeting, and we will have some good discussions on a lot of topics that I think need to be discussed with new members, new slates of officers. We will be discussing.
And I might ask that if any commissioners here have items that they would like to see included, if you have them now, you can let Mr. Moore know. If not, if you can let Mr. Moore know by...
I would say, like our normal before, the Tuesday before our pre-EDA.
Okay.
I think I'm pretty aware of what you all want to talk about, some of those things, and we will attempt to address as many as possible.
Here's my list right here.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the retreat?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if it's more detailed in order, would you probably need a little bit more time than that? Mr. Moore throws more detailed request, or?
If it's more detailed, yes, yes. So as soon as possible would be the best, again, because we're working it into that time frame. We have the ability to go over 2 o'clock. I'm just trying to be mindful of you all's time for an entire day.
Thank you.
What are they talking about?
Your vice chair.
You were voted in while you were.
I was in the parking lot on the phone?
That's right, yes, yeah.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to new business. The first item is the Budget Ad Hoc Committee. I was going to ask for volunteers for that. Anybody have a burning desire to work on that committee? If not, I'd like to ask Mr. Hines if he would be involved in that. And I would ask the treasurer, but he's not here.
I'd be happy to serve
Okay.
in this, and be happy to take anybody else who wants to join. And actually, this is very much has always been a collaborative effort with the commissioners, bringing forth their wants, desires throughout the budget. So.
Traditionally, the treasurer's been
Yes.
involved in that, so I would ask Mr. Blanchard.
That is all. Yeah, that's been the tradition.
If I could ask you to communicate with him and ask him if he would
I
work with
most
you.
certainly will.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have some big and interior build-out applications to consider now.
Yes, we do have two addresses, 451 Dinwiddie Street and 702 5th Street. Mr. Armand Smith will handle the facade improvement grant and interior build-out grant for 451 Dinwiddie Street.
Good morning, members of the authority. We have 2 local incentive program applications for 451 Dinwiddie Street. Mr. David Host is presenting these applications. We have in the amount of $11,801. We have a facade improvement grant. The grant requested, or the grant amount requested, is $5,900.50. Mr. Host will be redoing the awning on the building, painting the exterior, also doing interior lighting. That's a rendering of what it will look like. We'll also be redoing the doors. Point of note, he did fill out the application for the Downtown Design Committee. It has passed, so he got that certificate that was in your packet as of February 6, 2019. So he's passed that. He's gone through the channels. He's requesting that grant amount, and I'll take any questions for the facade improvement grant for 451 Dinwiddie. The next grant is for the interior build-out grant. It's 451 again. He's requesting $54,487. The full amount, the full grant amount, we're recommending be requested at $25,000. He's doing a complete gut job, essentially. Removing the paneling, removing the carpet, doing new HVAC, adding new lighting, new kitchen, and new bathroom to the interior. That's a rendering of what it will look like. See new conference space, office space, and this all be a process, both the exterior and the interior be a process of prepping it for commercial office space. So as of note, this building has been sitting vacant for 15 years. In touring the building, it's in very good condition to be sitting vacant for 15 years. Staff has reviewed the applications and we recommend approval. Mr. Host is also in the audience as well. So I'm available for any questions, and he's also available for any questions you may have.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
This building, correct me if I'm wrong, I actually did drive by. This building is currently vacant, correct? Mm-hmm. So there is no current existing business that's currently there. And the follow-up question is there a a business that is planning on moving there, or is this really just an improvement in an attempt to possibly sell to bring a business in? I guess is the question I would have.
Should I answer that? There is a opportunity for a business to move in there. The building needs a refurbishment, and Mr. Host has bought the building, is agreeing to do that. But we are in talks, and there is an opportunity for a business to move in there, a commercial user to move in there.
How long has Mr. Host owned this property?
Believe he bought it in January, December
December of
2018.
And, okay.
I thought that the facade improvement grant was for businesses to be operational, and I don't feel like this is going to be an operational business once the interior build-out is done. I don't think that's the intent of the incentive programs, is to assist real estate developers to redevelop property. It would be for the business that opens their doors there. I don't know if...
I'll allow Mr. Donahue to answer that, please.
I can respond to that, and that is a good comment that you have. The program does allow for improvements to assist in the marketability of a vacant property, which is the case here. As Mr. Smith noted, the property has been sitting vacant for a period of 15 years. So there has been little success in moving it to date. You'll note from the photos of the interior, it's quite dated. Although it's in good condition, it is certainly in need of some overhaul. Mr. Host is here in the audience. I'll offer him an opportunity to discuss the project further, but certainly from a marketing standpoint, it really needs a complete overhaul in order to attract a tenant.
So, I'm not into real estate development, so that'd be new to me. But the plan is to start a business there. That's something I'm currently working on. So I may be the tenant. I've also spoken with a couple others about being tenants. So the plan, I do not have a plan to sell it at this point. The plan is to try and put some jobs in there after it gets fixed up. So.
Yes.
I guess speaking to the historical precedents that we've had here has been multifold. One was what Ms. Link said about an actual applicant, an actual business, and aiding. But the other, further back, when we kind of the genesis of this program was to help eliminate some blight. And if you go down that street, you know, you start at one end and you go down, you got all these wonderfully manicured looking homes, and on the opposite side you got the church. It really is a nice area, and that one building does kind of stick out a little bit there. I would also, though, to Mrs. Link's point, I didn't see anything in our policy or procedure that would prohibit us from doing this, but I think maybe it's worth looking at for future, for us to think about maybe putting something in there for that, because I think with our limited funds and going citywide, we may need to think about further restricting that, I guess, something, if this is the authority's wish. But I don't think, and legal, you can chime in, of course, here in this, but I don't think we have anything in policy that prohibits this type of use of the grant application.
No, I don't think so, and I'd also agree that the origins, particularly the IBOG, I think the origins were to allow an owner to improve the interior so that the owner could attract a tenant to come in.
So
I just share with you all that Trinity Ship Management was in that building for years. They were a travel client of mine, and that building was, although they were a wonderful company and a wonderful client, it was a horrible building then, and that was 20 years ago. It hasn't changed. And I'll remind you all, I hear what you're saying about helping a building owner improve the building for what you don't yet know business will be there. But you have already approved vanilla shell interior build-outs just for the purpose of making a building saleable. For the building owner to make it attractive so that it would draw tenants. I think it's clear Mr. Host has expressed that he may have an interest in putting his own business there, maybe to share with others. So I don't see any issue with the request at all. It follows right with the history of what you've already done in my mind.
Yes.
Mr. Smith, could you go back to the plan for the upgrade of the building?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is what the owner is proposing. And I concur with Mrs. Simmons. When we look at the building, it has been vacant for 15 years. That's a long time, and it's in our downtown corridor. That for sale sign has been right up in the center and top. And to have someone interested in not only upgrading it, but not possibly, but putting either his own business or another business means people downtown, more employment for somebody. And I just think it's a positive upgrade, because that building has looked like that for the 34 years I've been here.
I think if you're looking at preventing somebody to get a grant so they can flip a building,
Is one thing.
I think when you do when you revisit that, there should be a period of time, if they're awarded a grant, that they can't flip it for economic gain within whatever you determine that period should be.
Thank you for
But
that.
I think that would be the way to go. But I agree with the fact that it's been vacant for 15 years. We need to get somebody in there.
Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve these two applicants. Also, if Mr. Moore could put that on our agenda for the items for the facade improvement grant revisiting,
Yeah.
for maybe an item that we can discuss as a group at the retreat. That might be
Okay.
good, but I do make that motion to approve both applications.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve these.
Do we want to break them?
Hold on, yeah, I'd like to break them apart.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
Oh, you'd
not
like to break
Then I'll
them?
make a
Okay.
I'll make a motion for the very first item then, which is to approve the facade improvement grant application for 451 Dinwiddie Street as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Hines? Ms. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Revel?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
No.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion for the FIG application, for the IBOG application on the same address.
So move
Can you hear a
for
second?
adoption.
I will second that motion.
Right.
Any further discussion on the interior build-out of this building?
All right, Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Revel?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, so we have an interior build-out grant application for 702 5th Street. Mr. Donahue.
Yes, good morning again, Commissioners, City Council liaisons. The final LIP application before you this morning is for 702 5th Street. This is in the Port Center Commerce Park area of the city. The applicant is Artcraft Fabricators. They are doing business as Collins Machine Works. Collins is a longtime Portsmouth industrial company. Their location currently is adjacent to the city municipal compound off of Frederick Boulevard. They have applied for an interior build-out grant in support of the relocation of their corporate headquarters and establishment of some additional industrial machine works facilities there at Ports Center. The total amount of the work that they are doing to the property, which they have acquired as of the end of 2018, is $190,000. The grant application is to cover the interior flooring replacement, which totals approximately $78,000 in work. So they do qualify for a interior build-out grant at the maximum $25,000 level. They are replacing all of the interior flooring, which currently is carpeting, with ceramic tile. As a machine works facility, as you can imagine, it sometimes can become a little bit dirty, and the ceramic tile is intended to prevent the carpeting from being destroyed. So it's a necessity for them to be able to operate and have their corporate headquarters in that facility. They will be maintaining their Sire Road location there adjacent to the municipal compound. So this is really an expansion of a long-time Portsmouth industrial business. Mr. Jacob Brown, who is with Collins Machine, is here this morning should you have any questions, and I'm able to address them as well.
Any questions, commissioners? Or anyone? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I heard you say this was an expansion of a current business, or is this a renovation of the current space?
Instead of relocation.
So they have a current location, which is off of
It'd be an
Sire Road.
expansion as well.
So they're expanding and also relocating at the same time. They've acquired a 32,000 square foot building in Ports Center, and about 5,000 of square feet of that facility will serve as their new corporate headquarters. But they will have two locations where they're going to be
So
operating.
they're going to maintain operations at their prior, at the...
That is
other
correct,
location?
yes. That is correct.
You're like 100 years old. if I'm-
They've been here a long time.
They're old. I'll defer to Mr. Brown on the exact date that they were established.
Coming up on 60, ma'am.
60 years.
Does that mean new jobs?
That's what I was wondering.
Yes.
It's three of us were asking the same question.
That is our plan is to hire additional personnel. We are currently hiring additional personnel. We have job postings in several different categories currently. Yeah, so to answer your question, yes.
It's good news, thank you.
Could you share some of those the job openings? What kind of jobs are you looking for?
Currently, this is actually one of my jobs as well. We're currently hiring entry-level on-site machinists, which is a training position. We're hiring CNC machinists, manual machinists. We're hiring, actually, yeah, I think that just about covers it. Various types of machinists and entry-level positions as well.
This kind of fits into all of our visions about Higher Portsmouth and figuring out how we're going to get these individuals trained through our system, through the schools, through a variety of different trades. So this is, while we're growing business, we need to make sure we're growing our workforce as well. It's a very important piece of that. I do have one other comment, if I can. I can't tell you how pleased I am that we are using another Portsmouth business to execute this contract as well. So I've been beating this drum ever since I've been on this commission that we should encourage applicants to use Portsmouth businesses. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
As an aside, the George W. Bush is passing by the
Oh,
window
is it
outside.
passing again? Oh, my God, it was 7:30, and you told me, Mrs. Simmons, and we missed it.
No, you haven't missed it. It's right
You wanted to
there.
see it from there all the way there.
I didn't want you to miss it,
Oh,
Dr. Patton.
thank you.
Can we have a 2-minute recess, Madam Chair?
I couldn't help it. I had to do it.
They don't announce when they're coming anymore. But somehow Ms. Simmons.
We're sorry, we're going to put off the
knew.
vote, sir.
Sorry, sir.
We'll have to put off the vote for a minute.
We got a
Quite all right.
And that's the George Bush.
I want to reiterate that.
That's 7,000 people on that ship. So much is under the water. You know, when they say how much.
So on YouTube, Y'all gonna be at the window. But that's good. Don't worry about it.
I'm so glad you looked up, Miss Rebel.
Don't worry about it. It's everybody.
Did you know it
So
was
YouTube, they not gonna know what we're doing.
I was going to say, you might want to cut that out.
Yeah, might have to cut it off. That's,
We'll leave this up.
Okay. Everybody got their pictures?
We got pictures.
Look, it's a big boat.
Huge boat.
They're huge now. Mrs.
I have a picture of the Lincoln
One of the
sitting next
advantages
to
of
the
living in
Carnival
a beautiful
victory.
port city.
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, so back to the interior build-out grant application for 702 Fifth Street.
Let's allow Mr. Mitchell to grab his seat.
He broke the blinds.
Approval to get some good lines.
There we go.
We'll get it straightened out before we leave.
For the
Take care of it.
council. Some new
Thank you,
lines.
sir.
Sorry about that, I couldn't help it, couldn't help myself.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on this grant application?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
I believe this is in the full faith context and exactly what we meant when we started putting this as a citywide effort, and I think it's wonderful.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Link,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Revel,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, do we need a closed meeting?
We need a closed meeting.
Houston, that they're
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A-3 for the purpose of discussing the disposition of publicly held real property interests where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding the Victory Crossing site, and certification of closed meeting made pursuant.
That's okay. Just that first part for now. Yep. Yep.
I second.
All right. Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Link,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Revel,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, we are in closed session.
Victory Crossing.
Mr. Hines,
Yes.
Ms. Link,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Revel,
Yes.
Mr. Scott,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
We are in open session.
Move to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I do have,
Oh,
We-
I do have a
Hold that
a
thought.
very quick comment. I guess I'm going to ask for maybe some clarity on procedures, processes, things of that nature, expectations possibly even. I generally listen and watch pretty much every one of the meetings that take place in the city of Portsmouth. And in the Planning Commission meeting of the last meeting, there was a discussion regarding the EDA's potential role in an application. I've been on this commission going into my 5th year and have never been asked to be there, present, answer questions or presentations to the Planning Commission. And I guess I just need to understand, what is our role when that happens? Is that something that we as a body need to have a representative there for this? Or is it more the applicant's role and not necessarily the EDA's role, as it has traditionally been? I guess if something's changed, I would like to kind of know what that expectation is, because I did receive a couple phone calls from Planning Commission members and from the public asking why we weren't there. Did we not care about development, which was, completely counter to what we do. So I guess I just need clarification, because I did promise I would ask that question.
I received those calls as well, so I
So
appreciate your...
I just want to know what our role is in that, I guess.
I'm trying to understand, you're asking what is your role as the EDA and its relationship to the Planning Commission?
Well, it was mentioned that there was supposed to be a presentation to the Planning Commission that
They
was
have
ultimately pushed.
presentations all the time.
That's correct. That was ultimately pushed out to their very next meeting.
Okay.
Because there was not the applicant wasn't there and/or the EDA as it was presented to the Planning Commission.
Okay,
So-
you could hold it right there. Mr. Baldwin, what is your knowledge on such discussion?
I think that's a fair description of what happened. We had that piece of property, EDA piece of property on McLean, the 30-acre property had a public hearing for the Planning Commission at their meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Is it
And
the Ryan Homes?
yes, and no one appeared to represent either the applicant
Or the
or the
EDA?
owner, which the
Because-
EDA being the owner.
Okay.
Normally, in past applications we've had, we usually get both. I think that's what the Planning Commission was probably alluding to. Usually, the applicant's required to show up. Planning Commission's not going to act on an application without an applicant. And normally, if it's an EDA piece of property, if somebody shows up just to represent the property owner in case there's some question that may come up. Usually, that doesn't happen, but when there's no one there,
Well,
Planning
I
Commission.
would say as the chair of the EDA that we were not informed that we should be there or that item would be considered. So I
And we
guess-
normally would not advise the EDA as a body.
No.
We work with the applicant. And this is just sort of one of those cases where the Economic Development Department's aware they have an application moving through. We work with the applicant and their agent. And I'm just saying typically someone shows up. And this would not have been a formal invitation
Right.
to anyone. This is just normally someone shows up
Right.
representing
We
the property
can
in this
correct
case.
that, and we can correct that right this
Appreciate that,
morning.
because
And the
it-
correction will be that through the Planning Department and Mr. Baldwin as Deputy and Director of Planning, when there is a piece of property coming forward in the package that you are aware it's a piece of EDA property, then you would inform the EDA Director, and then he in turn will inform the Chair, and the decision would be
Understand.
made.
I mean, so they were aware. This wasn't
Right.
this wasn't that people didn't know it was coming.
Okay, and then
So
we'll make sure
we'll
that
continue to do
someone's
that,
there.
but
Okay, well, that will be handled that way.
Point of clarity as well, if I may. The EDA and the Economic Development Director are two different
Entities.
entities. The EDA, if it's the expectation that the EDA is going to be there, naturally, it should go to our chair.
But
And our chair should then either discuss with the group, or if you're expecting Economic Development Director, then that's a conversation between you, the city manager,
the
and the
director would not go and contact Mrs. Revel.
Correct.
Proper procedure.
That's correct.
With
Yes, ma'am.
municipal government would be the director would contact the director. Whoever the director and liaison is to any board,
Yes, ma'am.
then that individual will make it known to the chair. But a department head would not call the chair of whatever to say this is it.
Oh, no, I'm not even alluding to that.
I know that, but
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
just clarification.
And just to be clear about the way that things operate, the Planning Commission, and this holds true, and I'm speaking in terms of how we also go in front of the City Council as well.
Yes.
We typically use the Planning Commission, well, not only is the Planning Commission having its own public hearing to make a recommendation to City Council, we also use that as the opportunity for the applicant to come in and give their presentation, which they follow up when they go to City Council. Under the way the City Council operates, the applicant is required to get up and give a presentation to City Council as opposed to staff doing it. So we like to have the applicant show up and I was only speaking, and I'm not sure about the conversations. Planning commissioners are also volunteers, so we don't, they make whatever phone calls they want to make. I just make the comment that just generally, and just historical past practice, when the Economic Development Authority has property that's in a rezoning process, there's usually someone just to see in case something goes wrong, in case there's some question that comes up. We just like to make sure these things don't get
And I totally
tangled up.
understand that, but my only issue was that I had no knowledge that this hearing was
Yeah.
involving the
Right,
EDA.
and I'll say you were not getting calls from staff. This wasn't, if the planning commissioner wanted to call, they just looked out in the room and, the room was empty when the application came up, and I think they were just kind of wondering what happened. That's
But even
all I
so,
can say.
you wouldn't ask a volunteer member of the Economic Development Authority a question. It would go to the staff of
Right, that's typically what.
the Economic Development Department.
That's what I said, the fact that the commissioners are calling other commissioners, it's
Yeah.
not something we're doing.
It would have been
I'm just sort of giving what
I think
happened.
it's citizens that know we're commissioners are the ones that would
Because we
call
get,
us.
and that.
They ask
so
us
I
what's going on.
I received
Right.
phone calls after that meeting, asking, why were we there? And I had no information with which to answer that question.
And I guess this is not to look back on what happened even the last meeting, it's just to make sure going forward that
doesn't
we have an open, communication of what is expected of the department and of the authority, that we meet those expectations, because we want to be a good partner with our planning and with our planning commission. But we just need to know what the expectation is, so that way we can.
And, from the staff, our biggest concern, your applicant couldn't move forward. That was really
Sure.
what happens. That turns into a 30-day delay.
Right.
Cost them money.
We're not going to gripe about what we have to go back through to re-advertise and all, so that's not really pertinent to the conversation. We just don't like applicants get
We certainly don't
held
either.
up when they're trying to move along. And I'm not worried about it. Again, I can't speak for commissioners calling. I'm not worried about this happening again.
And again, I brought this up because I did promise a number of people that the EDA does care about moving this business forward in the city of Portsmouth. And I told everybody that I would bring this up and get clarity as to what our role is.
Yeah, and
So thank you both for providing that
Yeah,
clarity.
we would not expect EDA members to attend
Okay.
unless you so chose on your own. It's a public hearing, if you wanted to come, that's your choice.
Thank you for your clarity. Appreciate it.
Any other business for the good of the cause? Any other commissioners have anything that they would like to say?
I would.
Yes.
As of January 31st of 2018, Integrity Security ceased operations, and I accepted a position with Top Guard Security in their leadership, so I am no longer a business owner in Portsmouth, and I'm so sorry. But it was just an opportunity that I could not say no to. So, and I have cards for everybody, so you have new contact information.
Anyone else? Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Thank you.